He thought it was just another job, fixing a broken porch for a quiet woman in a forgotten neighborhood. But as his hammer met old wood, he uncovered a secret carved beneath the surface. Initials from a love long lost, and a silence that hid more than just grief. What started as repair work slowly unraveled a story of heartbreak, hidden wealth, and a promise that refused to fade. Stay with us as one man's kindness cracks open a heart that's been locked away for years. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, give this video a like, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The wind blew gently down the quiet street, rustling old leaves across the cracked sidewalks. Most of the houses looked worn, their paint faded, porches sagging with age. On the far corner stood a house that hadn't seen love in a long time. Its porch was crooked, its railing split. It looked like it had been waiting for something or someone. A dusty pickup truck rumbled to a stop outside. The engine gave a tired groan before falling silent. Jonah Murray stepped out, tugging a toolbox from the back. His jeans were patched at the knees and sawdust clung to his shirt. From the other side of the truck, a little girl climbed down, clutching a stuffed bunny in one hand and a small sketch pad in the other. "Stay close, Lucy," Jonah said, his voice soft but tired. "I will," she chirped, skipping to his side. Her sneaker squeaked on the pavement as she followed him up the steps of the leaning porch. Before Jonah could knock, the front door creaked open. A woman stood there, arms crossed, her face calm but unreadable. She had short auburn hair pulled back neatly and wore a pale blue sweater that matched her eyes. She didn't smile. "You're late," she said. "Sorry," Jonah replied, tipping his cap politely. "Had to stop and find this one's missing shoe," he added with a small grin, nodding toward Lucy. The woman glanced at Lucy, who waved shyly, then turned back to Jonah with a cool expression. "I need the porch repaired, that's all." "I understand," Jonah said simply. He set down his tools. "Let's take a look." The woman stepped aside without another word, disappearing into the dim hallway. Jonah turned to Lucy. "Can you sit here and draw for a bit, Bug?" "I'm gonna draw the house," she said, flipping open her sketch pad. "It looks like it has secrets." Jonah gave a soft chuckle. "Maybe it does." He knelt and ran a hand along the porch rail. The wood felt rough and soft in places. Too soft. Years of rain and wind had eaten away at the structure. Nails had rusted out. Boards shifted under his weight. Some were warped beyond repair. He muttered to himself, "This one's seen better days." Inside the house, behind a foggy front window, the woman watched him. Her fingers wrapped around a steaming mug, but her shoulders were stiff. She looked like someone who had grown used to silence, maybe even chosen it. Jonah didn't look up. He focused on the wood, on the patterns of rot, on the work. That was easier than people. After about an hour, he stood and stretched, brushing dust from his sleeves. "Snack time, Lucy," he called. Lucy jumped up and skipped over, holding her drawing high. "Look, Daddy, I drew you, and the house, and her," she whispered, pointing toward the window. "She looks kind of like a snow queen." Jonah grinned, looking at the drawing. It was a bit crooked, full of wild colors, but full of life. "You've got talent, Bug." The front door opened again. The woman stepped out, mug still in hand. "You work quietly," she said. "Not much choice," Jonah replied, glancing at Lucy. "When she's around, I keep the noise to a minimum." The woman didn't reply right away. Her eyes moved to Lucy, who had returned to coloring. After a moment, she spoke again, softer this time. "She likes to draw?" "She does," Jonah said, watching his daughter with quiet pride. "Says she wants to be an architect, or a dragon tamer. Depends on the day." The woman smiled slightly, just a flicker at the corner of her lips. "That's imaginative." Lucy looked up. "I'm going to build houses that sing," she said brightly, "and ones with secret doors." The woman blinked. Something flickered in her eyes. Not pain exactly, but something close. "My name's Nora," she said at last. Jonah nodded. I'm Jonah, and that's Lucy. A silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just careful. Jonah returned to work, prying up old boards and measuring replacements. Beneath one loose plank, something caught his eye, a piece of wood smoother than the rest. He leaned in, brushing away dust. Letters were carved into the beam, NC plus RL. A heart around them, faded but still there. He stared at it for a moment, fingers tracing the lines. It looked like something carved by hand long ago, with care. Hey, Bug, he called. Come look. Lucy peered over the hole beside him. Is that a secret message? Looks like initials, Jonah said. A promise, maybe. A love promise, she whispered, grinning. Jonah stood slowly, eyes drifting toward the door. Yeah, maybe. When he stepped inside to mention it to Nora, she froze. What did you find? She asked, her voice suddenly sharp. Just some letters under the porch. Your initials? Nora's face paled. It's nothing, she said quickly, too quickly. Jonah nodded but didn't push. Just thought you'd want to know. The front door closed behind him with a quiet click. Outside, Lucy sat humming to herself, drawing stick figures under stars. Jonah watched her for a moment, then looked back at the house. There was more to this place, more to Nora. But for now, he had work to do. The porch may have been broken, but something told him it wasn't the only thing waiting to be rebuilt. The days passed slowly, but with purpose. Each morning, Jonah arrived with Lucy tucked under his arm and a new plan in his head. The porch was in worse shape than he had first thought. Half the support beams were rotten and the steps groaned like they were ready to collapse. Still, he worked quietly, steadily, board by board. Lucy sat nearby, her little legs crossed as she colored on thick sketch paper. Her pencils were always scattered around her like a rainbow had exploded. She hummed songs only she seemed to know, pausing now and then to show Jonah her latest drawing. This one has secret rooms under the floor, she told him, holding up a picture of a castle with stars in its windows. For hiding treasure. Hope there's no treasure under here, Jonah said with a chuckle, prying up a stubborn plank. Just termites. Behind the dusty front window, Nora often stood with her mug of tea, watching. At first, she didn't say much, just small nods, the occasional quiet comment about supplies or schedules. But something had shifted since Jonah found the carved initials beneath the porch. She hadn't mentioned them again, and neither had he. But both of them seemed to think about it often. One afternoon, while Jonah was sorting through a pile of new lumber, Nora stepped out onto the porch with a blanket draped over her arm. It's getting cooler, she said. Thought Lucy might want this. Jonah blinked, surprised. That's kind of you. She didn't respond, just set the blanket down gently beside Lucy and turned to go. Thank you, Miss Nora. Lucy chirped without looking up. I'm drawing your house again, but this time it has flower vines climbing up the porch. Nora paused for a moment, then slowly sat on the top step. May I see it? She asked softly. Lucy brightened and turned her sketchbook around. The drawing showed the old porch, but in Lucy's version it had golden lights hanging across the railing and a big tree blooming nearby. Two stick figures stood on the steps, one tall, one small, with big smiles on their faces. Nora's eyes lingered on the image. You have a big imagination, she said. I like to draw places that feel happy, Lucy replied. This house feels sad sometimes, so I try to help it smile. Nora didn't answer, but her fingers curled slightly on her lap, as if holding something invisible. Jonah had paused, listening. He didn't say a word, just kept hammering nails into place with slow, steady strikes. The next day, Jonah pulled up another part of the porch floor and found a second surprise. Wedged between two beams was a small, dusty locket. The chain was tangled and broken, but the silver glinted faintly beneath the dirt. He picked it up gently, brushed it clean, and opened it. Inside was a tiny photograph. A young man with curly hair and warm eyes stood beside a younger Nora. They were both laughing. On the other side of the locket, etched in careful handwriting, were the words, "Forever begins here." Jonah stared at it, unsure if he should say anything. But something told him this wasn't meant to stay buried. He walked up to the front door and knocked softly. Nora opened it slowly, her expression guarded. "I found this," he said, holding the locket in his palm. She looked at it and said nothing for a long time. Then she took a deep breath. "I'd forgotten it was there," she said quietly, taking it with shaking fingers. "Was he the RL under the porch?" Jonah asked gently. Nora nodded. "Raphael? We were young and full of plans." Jonah didn't speak. He just waited. He wanted to fix this house, she said at last. Turn it into something beautiful. He even started drawing up plans for the garden, the kitchen. He was the dreamer. I was the one who made lists. She gave a small, sad smile. But he died suddenly, and all those plans stopped. Jonah's chest ached with a familiar kind of sorrow. Loss was something he knew too well. "I'm sorry," he said. Nora gave a faint nod, her eyes glossy. "I stayed away for a long time. Then I came back. I thought maybe if I fixed the house, I could fix the past too." Jonah looked down at the steps. Maybe fixing the porch isn't just about the house. Nora didn't answer, but she didn't close the door either. That evening, Jonah worked late. The sun dipped behind the rooftops, casting long shadows over the porch. Lucy had fallen asleep curled on the blanket, her sketchbook resting beside her. Nora stepped outside again and sat down on the top step. "She dreams in color," she said, nodding at Lucy. "She dreams big," Jonah said with a proud smile. "Keeps me going." Nora was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Did you always want to build things?" "No," he said. "I just wanted to make something that wouldn't fall apart. After my wife passed, this was all I had to give. Lucy. Something solid, something real." Nora nodded slowly. "I understand." The porch creaked softly under their weight. Somewhere in the distance, a wind chime sang. Inside the house, the lights glowed warmer than before. Jonah looked over at Nora. Her face, once frozen in grief, now held something softer. Not peace, not yet, but maybe the start of it. A door had opened. Just a crack, and sometimes that's all it takes. The morning was quiet, but Jonah's mind wasn't. He hammered carefully, replacing the last support beam under the porch. It should have felt like progress, like the end of something good. But all he felt was a knot in his chest that refused to go away. He hadn't told Nora yet, but something he heard the night before was weighing on him. It had started when Lucy had fallen asleep early, worn out from a day of running in the yard. Jonah had stayed behind to pack up his tools. As he locked the back of his truck, he heard someone clearing their throat from across the street. "Evening, Jonah." It was Mr. Lewis, the older man who lived next door. He leaned over his garden fence, wiping dirt from his hands. "Evening," Jonah replied. "Nice tomatoes this year." "They try." Mr. Lewis chuckled. Then his tone shifted. "You know much about Miss Callan?" Jonah raised a brow. "Just that she's had a tough time, lost someone." Mr. Lewis nodded slowly. "That's true. What folks don't always know is she owns most of the houses on this block." Jonah paused. "What do you mean?" "She's been buying them up through a quiet holding company. Years now. Never makes a big show about it. Keeps the rents low. Hires local help. Even helps pay for repairs if folks can't manage it." Jonah frowned, unsure what to make of it. "Why live here then? Why let the place fall apart like this if she's got money?" "Some folks don't want to leave memories behind," Mr. Lewis said, his voice softer now. "That porch you're fixing?" Her fiancé drew the original plans for it. They were supposed to rebuild it together. Jonah stared at the ground, heart heavy. "She's not here for business," Mr. Lewis added. "She's here for a promise." Now, Jonah stood on the nearly finished porch, remembering those words. A promise. A broken one, maybe, but still burning quietly in her heart. He rubbed his eyes and stepped down onto the walkway just as a sleek, black car pulled up at the curb. Out stepped a man in a clean gray suit, polished shoes, sunglasses that didn't belong in a neighborhood like this. "Morning," he called out, walking toward Jonah. "You must be the carpenter." "I am," Jonah replied cautiously. "Can I help you?" "Name's Derek Lane. I represent Callan Properties. Miss Callan is preparing to sell these homes. We're finalizing upgrades to get everything market ready. That porch looks sharp. Great work." Jonah's hammer stilled in his hand. "She's selling?" he repeated. "Slow. Of course," Derek said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "These old places will be turned into modern townhomes, upscale. Fresh life for the neighborhood. You're helping move it all along." Jonah didn't respond. His chest tightened. The man gave a quick nod and returned to his car. The engine purred as it drove away. Jonah stood frozen. He stared at the porch, at the boards he had carefully replaced, at the little marks Lucy had drawn in the dust, at the spot where Raphael and Nora's initials still rested under the floor. Was this all just a job to prepare for a sale? Was everything, her quiet smiles, her shared stories, just part of a plan? He stormed up the steps and knocked hard on the front door. Nora opened it, startled. "Jonah, what is it?" "You should tell me the truth," he said. "You're selling this place, maybe the whole street." Nora blinked. "Where did you hear that?" "It doesn't matter," he said, his voice rising. "You let me fix this porch like it meant something. You sat with my daughter, you shared memories, but all the while you were just getting ready to tear it all down." Nora's face turned pale. "It's not like that." "Then what's it like?" he snapped. "Because to me it feels like I was used." Lucy peeked from behind the couch, eyes wide. "Jonah, please," Nora whispered. "You don't understand." "No," he interrupted. "I thought I did. I thought you were trying to rebuild something real. But I was wrong." Nora's voice shook. "I didn't lie to you, I just didn't know how to tell you. This house, I didn't want to let it go. But the debts, Raphael's family, the medical bills, they buried me. I've been holding on for as long as I can. I'm tired, Jonah." Jonah stared at her. He wanted to believe her, but anger and hurt mixed inside him like a storm. Lucy stepped forward, tugging at his sleeve. "Daddy, don't yell." He looked down at her, his heart breaking. He turned back to Nora. "I think we should leave." Nora stood silent as Jonah took Lucy's hand and walked away. The door clicked shut behind them. That night, their little house felt colder than usual. Lucy sat curled on the couch, her sketchpad untouched. "Daddy," she said quietly, "why do people hurt each other when they're sad?" Jonah didn't answer at first. He just held her close. "I don't know, Bug," he said softly. "Sometimes we get scared, and we push people away before they can leave us first." Lucy nodded slowly. "I liked her." Jonah stared at the wall, his heart heavy with regret. "So did I," he thought. But he didn't say it out loud. The days that followed were quiet, too quiet. Jonah tried to focus on other jobs, but nothing felt the same. The sound of his hammer, once steady and calming, now echoed in his ears like a question he couldn't answer. Lucy didn't hum while she drew anymore. She simply sat in silence, her sketchpad open but untouched. One evening, while Jonah was organizing his toolbox, Lucy looked up from the couch. "Daddy," she said gently, "do you think she's still sad?" Jonah paused. He didn't need to ask who Lucy meant. "I think maybe she is," he said. "I think maybe we both are." Lucy hugged her bunny tighter. "Can we find her?" Jonah looked at his daughter's face, the same face that had brought warmth to cold rooms and smiles to silent people. He nodded. "We can try." The next morning, they climbed into the old truck and drove through town. They stopped by the bakery, but Nora wasn't there. They looked near the small park where she sometimes sat with her tea, but the bench was empty. They even checked the corner bookstore, but the lights inside were off. Just as the sun began to set, they drove past an old greenhouse on the edge of town. The glass was foggy, and wild plants curled around the windows like nature trying to reach in. "There," Lucy whispered, pointing. A figure sat on a bench near the entrance, head bowed, hands in her lap. Jonah parked the truck and stepped out with Lucy. The gravel crunched under their feet as they walked toward the greenhouse. Nora looked up. Her eyes were tired. She didn't move. Lucy ran ahead and gently held out a daisy chain she had made in the truck. "This is for you," she said, "because flowers grow back, even when they've been stepped on." Nora took the chain with shaking hands. "I missed you," Lucy said softly. Nora nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "I missed you too." Jonah stopped a few feet away. "Nora," he said, voice steady but quiet, "I owe you an apology." She looked at him, eyes shining but calm. "I let my fears talk louder than my heart," Jonah continued. "I didn't listen. I assumed the worst and I hurt you." Nora blinked quickly but said nothing. "I understand now," he said. "You weren't trying to run from the past. You were trying to keep a promise, and I should have seen that." Nora stood slowly. "I didn't want to sell," she said, "but I was drowning. I kept thinking if I could just fix the porch, fix the house, maybe I'd feel like I was still keeping a piece of him alive." Jonah stepped closer. "Maybe you were. Maybe you still are." Lucy slipped her hand into Nora's, and the three of them stood there in the fading light. Weeks passed. The porch was finished now. Straight, strong, and warm in the afternoon. Sun. Fairy lights hung across the beams and flower boxes overflowed with color. Neighbors stopped to smile. Some even left notes on the railing. Nora no longer watched from behind windows. She sat on the steps with Lucy helping her draw. Sometimes they just talked, about nothing and everything, about books, dreams, gardens, and stars. One Saturday, as the sun dipped low, a small crowd gathered on the front lawn. There were folding, chairs and lemonade. Kids ran through the grass. Laughter floated through the air. Jonah stood at the porch, dressed in his cleanest shirt. His hands were still rough from work, but they shook a little now. Nora stepped onto the porch in a simple white dress. Her hair was loose, with a few daisies tucked in. Her smile wasn't forced. It was soft and real. Lucy led her by the hand, proudly carrying a small wooden box. Jonah opened the box and held out a wooden ring he had carved himself from one of the old porch beams. "It's not gold," he said quietly, "but it's from the place where we began. I thought maybe we could begin again." Nora's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Let's begin again." He slid the ring onto her finger, and the crowd clapped gently. Lucy cheered, throwing petals into the air. Later that night, after everyone had gone, the three of them sat on the porch steps. The fairy lights twinkled above them and the stars peeked out from the sky. Jonah pulled out a small chisel and carved into the beam beside them. E+, N+, L. Bast home. Nora traced the letters with her fingers. "It's not perfect," he said. "It's ours," she replied. Lucy looked up, her voice soft but sure. "We're a team now, right?" Jonah pulled her close. "Always." The wind blew gently, not cold this time, but soft, like a whisper through the leaves. And for the first time in a long time, the porch didn't feel broken, it felt like home.